Hello, Internet, and welcome back to the series. So, we have now set up all our environment and we've started to create some entities. Now, the entities aren't fully complete, but they've got some base properties, columns, etc., that we're going to use. And before we create a model driven app, we need to set up the views and the forms for those entities. Now, if you're not entirely sure what views and forms are, if you imagine a view as a table view of data, which can have a certain amount of columns on it, sorted in a certain way, and it's normally, it can be configured differently, but it's normally non-editable from the view form from table. If you wish to edit the data, you would click into a hyperlink on that view, which would then open a form, which is somewhat similar to what you see on most websites where you input some data or edit data. So that's what we're going to configure. And we're going to go through each of the tables. There's only a few columns, so it shouldn't take too long, and show you how to do that. So we'll start with the first table we created, which was customer. And we can go to views. So if you're not sure how to get to this, you click on customer. There are a few different ways to get to it actually. So you can click on views here in the data experiences box, or you can expand customer and go to views from here as well. So there are a number of different views and they're used for a variety of different reasons. The main one we're going to concentrate on at the moment is the main view, which is the active customers one. So it's the public view, public default view, and that's what we're going to edit. So click on the ellipsis, the three dots, and click edit. Give that a moment, and you can see this is what we've got so far. So we've got the name column, which is the primary column, and we've got created on. Probably not interested like in a view, knowing when the customer was created, potentially. So we're going to remove that. So you just click on the column and click remove. And then what do we want? So we added email. So it'd be quite good, handy information to quite quickly understand the email of a customer. So we'll put that in. And you can see that this column is quite narrow and an email is going to be longer than that. So you can edit properties and increase this up to 300 pixels. So we'll go for 300. That's pretty much all we have created for the customer. So we're happy with that view. We can give it a new name if you wish. We'll leave it as active customers for now, but you can rename that should you wish. And if you want to sort, so it's already sorting by name, which is alphabetical, so that kind of makes sense. So we'll leave that. And if you was to make additional views filtered by other properties, I don't know, customers with Gmail email accounts for an arbitrary example, then you can do that using filters just by coming in here and editing the filters, adding new rows, etc. So email ends with gmail.com, for example. We can do that, but we won't do that right now. And once you're finished, click save and publish. If there were to be data in the system, you would see it in here. So excuse me, it's sometimes more beneficial to have a little bit of data in so you can see how it's responding to your sort and filters just as a sanity check. But once you're happy, then save and publish. So click save and publish. Always best just to wait for that to finish loading. So you got the nice tick there, happy days. So we've done our first view. I'm going to go back through the breadcrumbs back to customer and go to forms now. Similar to views, there are different forms and they have different purposes. The main one we're interested in is the form type of main. Every entity must have a main form. And there is also a quick view form. So quick view is normally used for if you're in a child record, so a child form, and you want to display some key information from the parent record, then that can be done using a quick view form. So we're going to go into the main form. And this is what we've got so far. Okay. So owner mod administrator, that is just the default user in this test tenant that I've created. So we don't need to see that. So we can hide that by clicking on hide. If for whatever reason you get a bit lost and you're not sure what you've hidden, as this purple box states, You can show all the hidden fields, should you wish, and flick that on and off. Okay. What I would do at this point, before I start messing around with it too much, is I would give the form itself a new name. So it currently says information. Now, by default, all the forms are called information. It's really not helpful when you are dealing with maybe some dependency issues when you're pushing to new environments, and it will say, oh, there's a dependency to this form called information. And you're like, well, which one is that? So a good naming convention, I would definitely suggest, is the way forward. And I tend to just call it the entity type. So customer, and then I will say main form. So that tells me exactly what it is. Happy days, great. So we've got the name in here. So we've got different options on the form. We can add different components. So currently we've got 2 tabs. This related tab is default. So you can see any related entities to this customer field. So a customer has vehicles, we know that. So you can go directly to the customer's vehicles. And audits is basically the Dataverse auditing system. So you can see any changes in the data and who's done it, etc. Basically just a log of changes. But you have to turn that on at the environment level. So we won't bother with that. But the main thing being you've got vehicles. Now, really, I don't want that sat in a related tab. I quite like to have it in its own tab because I know it's always going to be required. So one thing we can do is we can come over here to the components. We can add a 1-column tab. You can see it's created a new tab. If I click on that, I can then give it a label name. So vehicles. Okay, that's great. And then we've got a new section. Don't really need a title to that. The tab name is enough. So to clean up the UI and keep it as simple as possible, I'm going to hide the label by clicking the hide label button. And then I'm going to add a subgrid. Now a subgrid is accessing a view of a related entity. So in this case, it's accessing a view of the vehicles entity. So if you click on that, automatically now, this never used to be the case, but now show related records is always ticked. I'm presuming that Lisa Crosby's comment on one of her videos to Microsoft got listened to, and then they made that update. So thank you very much, Lisa. That's really helpful. And then the table, we can select from the related table. So we want the vehicles. The default view. So we can have, if we did have more than one view, so currently in the vehicles, we haven't played around with it yet. So we've got active and inactive vehicles, which is just based on the status columns. We want active vehicles, happy days, click done. Okay, so this is a subgrid. There's no data in there, so we can't see it. It's also got this subgrid label. I don't want to see that. It's no good to anybody. You can change it, but again, the tab name does enough. So we're going to hide the label. That's fantastic. We're going to flick back to the general tab. Again, you can rename it if you wish. So we can call it customer details. This name here, you don't need to worry about it too much, but it's essentially how you are going to reference the tab and the page in Pro code if you were to do some client code for JavaScript. So I'm going to give that a name now because we might just do that a little bit later on in the series. So I'm going to say customer details tab. Okay. And currently we've only got name, and we have one more column that we want to add in, and that's our customer email. So we can click on the ABC icon, which essentially grabs all our fields. By default, it shows the ones that you haven't used yet, which is more than likely the ones that you're interested in, but you can toggle that on and off. So you can see name appeared then when I click that. So we just want to drag the email in. So we can drag the email in underneath there. And this UI takes a little bit of getting used to, like where to release different fields as you drag and drop them in. You can just click them in and they kind of end up wherever they want to end up, and then you and then you play around with it. But essentially, you can move them around. And there's different components if you want different space. So this entire page, for example, that I'm on is currently set up for 1 column. I can change that to 2 columns, and then I've got this nice other section So we could have maybe the name of the customer there, and we can say this is the contact. So any email, telephone numbers, etc. will come in here. So we can do things like that. And then additionally, for these fields, we can add more columns in. So if you want a little bit more poetic license, you tend not to have a great deal of poetic license in a model-driven app. And this is where that form is going, and that is where this form will be used. So do what you can to make it look nice, but essentially it looks very Fluent UI, which is a component library style guide, if you like, which you can use. So it's all very professional, very corporate, and it looks good. So as long as you've got your spacing and you're ordering in the right way, you tend to not go too far wrong with this. So that's great. So we've done our customer form, happy with that. Got customer details, vehicles. What else does a customer have? Well, they have work orders, don't they? So we need a work orders tab. So we go back to our components, another one column tab, click on the tab, and we'll go work orders. We'll give it a reasonable name, work orders tab, and then we'll hide the label. Just repeating the process, so we'll add the subgrid in. And at this point, we haven't got work orders available to us because the work orders were against the vehicles, of course, which I forgot. So what we will do for now is we will leave that in, but we'll come back and actually we'll relate the work order not only to the vehicle, but also to the customer. So we'll do that. In fact, we can do that directly from the form. So if we come back to the fields view, we can say new table column. So this is the same UI as what we saw in make.powerapps, but it's just doing it inside the form. So we'll call this work orders. That work order. It's going to be a lookup to, it's not required. No, in fact, we're doing this the wrong way. We can't relate because I was trying to relate the tables in reverse order and you can't do that. So we shall save that as it is for now. Again, I'm not filtering out any mistakes that I make along the way, just so you know how to come across, if you come across the same things and same issues. I remember when I was learning that where to put the lookup columns, sometimes got a little bit confusing. So, and again, I was about to try and make the same mistake there. So we need to go to the work order entity or table and relate it to the customer. So let's do that. So we'll go to the work order table, we'll go to columns, we can add a new column and we'll call this customer. It's already related to the vehicle. So in data terms, we're creating a circular reference, which isn't ideal for things like Power BI, but we can handle that later down the line. Lookup, and we're going to go for required, and it's going to be customer. Happy days. And then inside the customer forms again, we should be able to go back in. See customer main form, we renamed it, happy days. So we go back, we just wait for it to load. Go to the work order tab that we created, work orders. Now we go to components and add that subgrid in again. This time we should have work orders available to us. Perfect, that's just what we wanted. Click done, hide the label because it's an awful looking label and it's not required because of the tab name, and save. Happy days. Okay, so we've done work orders. Let's quickly go through the ones that are relevant to that work orders form. So we had vehicles. We need a vehicle view. So the vehicle view is present in the subgrid of the customer form. So we need to edit that active vehicles view. We've got registration, great, created on, we don't need, we can remove that. And we can have make and model. Okay, the registration is really wide. It's probably never going to be that wide, so we'll make it 125. Make could be a bit wider. We could probably make this Ford model 125. Make them all 125. Great. Save. That's saved. Okay, go back to vehicle. This time we'll do the main form. Give it a name. Okay, so we'll say vehicle main form. And we want make and not modified by. Don't need that. Make a model. You have to have owner there, but we can hide it. Just hide it in its entirety. Okay, nice and simple. So we can publish that. And what else did we have? We had work order. So views, check the views because the active view was present in the customer table. Created on, in this case, is probably quite relevant. So we'll leave that in. What vehicle it's from, customer and invoice total. I think that's probably all we need. Let's move these around a little bit. So serial's too wide, so we can say 125 for that. Created on, I think that probably sits best at the end. The customer first, the vehicle, the invoice total. In fact, invoice total at the end. Great. Make customer a little bit wider. Vehicle will show the registration. Now, what we can do is, if we wanted to, we can add different information from related views. So if we have the vehicle, that'll show the registration by default. We can also say grab the make and the model from the vehicle, which is actually pulling from the different entity. So we can do that. Okay, save and publish. Brilliant. And then we'll go to the work order form. Wait for that to load a second. And then we rename it work order main form. So currently we've got the serial, we've got the owner, not interested in that, hide that. And we shall go for the customer first, the vehicle second, and then the invoice total. Okay. The invoice total, we're going to use some automation in further down the line to calculate the invoice total. So I am going to make that read only. You can see you get the little lock symbol. So when it's live in an application, someone clicks on it, they can't edit that. So that's all calculated. Happy days. Serial. Serial is also read only because it auto populates. So that's fine. And we can actually move that serial up here, which I'll show you in an app in a second. Okay, perfect. And what else have we got left? So we've got part and job. So we'll do these quickly now. So for part, let's just check what columns we had. I don't think we had a lot. So purchase, stock. Okay, brilliant. So we will go views, active parts. We don't need created on, remove that. And then we shall go for the purchase price, the customer price and profit. And I think that's probably enough. So we'll save that. Go back to part, do the form quickly. Okay, and we want purchase price, customer price, and profit. The profit will be automatically read only because it's a formula field, so it knows no user action is required. Owner column, we don't need that. So we shall hide it. And awesome. I think that's good enough for that one. Okay, and then the job. So we'll go for views first. And it was linked to a work order. We're going to expand on this table as we move through, but at the moment it's got a work order. We'll just leave it as that for now. And then we'll go back to the form. Say job, job main form. And we'll just need the work order in there. And we shall hide the owner again. It's great, save and publish that. Okay, and that's fine. New job. Oh, and part. I forgot part. So it's optional. Remember the lookup to part, just in case we need a part, so we can save that. So that's fine. Actually, what we could do here, if there's a part visible selected, we could have I think it's display and a quick view. So we'll look up the part and the part information. Done. Okay, so there we can see the part name. I mean, that would come through anyway, but if we can edit this card for the part, so just tidy this up. I think what we'll do is we'll make it 2 columns. We'll move this over here. We'll call it part information. And this will update based on the selection of the part here. And then we'll call this job information. Job info section, just in case we need to reference it in code later down the line. Perfect. So we can go to part, to forms, and the quick view, which we've just inserted into the job card. We've got name and owner, so you probably remember those popping up. So we can hide owner. We don't need that. And let's just say we need the customer price in there. I don't. Okay. Perfect. And I think there was one more thing to do. So I think the work order form did not have the jobs subgrid on. So we need to add that in because each work order is associated with loads of different jobs potentially. As you can see there, related jobs. So I'm not interested in that. So I'm going to hide that because I don't think it looks very nice. And we're going to have a 1-column tab called. In fact, instead of having a tab in this case, what we can do is in the general tab, we can add another 1-column section instead of having a tab because there's not a lot to display. So we'll say jobs. Jobs. And we'll call it jobs section. Then we'll add a subgrid. Oh, that accidentally added a spacer, which is just a blank bit of UI just to move fields around if you need it. Subgrid and jobs. Great. So we'll add the job subgrid in and hide the label again. Okay, so now then there's definitely more work to be done on the views and forms as we move through this. But the final thing would be to create a model-driven app. This is the easy bit. It's not like a Canvas app, which takes a fair amount of time and playing around with the UI and code. This app is essentially all driven from the database, from the entities and the forms and the views that we've created. So we're going to click on apps, click new app, and go model-driven app. And we will call it motor admin app. Click create. Okay, here's our model driven app. We'll start by adding a page. We'll link that to a Dataverse table. We will look for customer, add. So we've got customers, great. That's in a group called new group. That's no good. So we'll call that customers as well. And then we'll probably create a new group and call it motor admin. In fact, we'll call it logistics. Okay, and then we'll add a new page to that. And this is where we'll put our parts. Okay, so we've got that engine that we put in earlier on in the previous video. We've got our customers. Okay, so yes, we can play around a little bit with icons and things, when we'll do that later when we're making it look a bit pretty, but right now we'll concentrate on the functionality. So I think we are, at the moment at least, pretty good. So we'll click save. We'll publish it. And we'll do, once that's published, we'll do a very quick check before rounding up this video. So directly in the UI, you can click on customers and you can interact with the app in the same way you would if it was live. So we're in the active customers view. It's currently empty. We'll click new, create a new customer, Joe Haig, and we'll say Joe Haig at gmail.com. Not a real email, just so you know. And we'll click save. Now we've saved, we can access the vehicle subgrid. We can add a new vehicle. We'll say DY12MFG, and it's a Ford Focus. Save and close. Okay, happy days. So now inside our form, we've got all the information there. That's great. So perfect. It's related to Joe Haig. We haven't got any work orders yet. Let's create a new one. So yeah, for customer Joe Haig vehicle. So currently there are no filters based on this. So we'll look at how we can filter this lookup view based on the customer in the next video. But we will choose that one. Click save. And now we can add a new job to this. So we can say new job. The ID should come through. I should have made that read only, but I forgot. So we'll look, replacing the engine. You see it's dragged through the engine, customer price and information from the quick view form for part. And now we can click save. Okay, so we've got job one. Clearly, we've not looked at our jobs view, so we need to sort that out. But in essence, we have an app and we're good to go. So we've put a little bit of data in. We can click play, and this is how it'll look to the general user. And here we go. So we've got customers. We've got one customer. Click on Joe Haig. There's his details. There's his vehicles. There's associated work orders. And we're good to go. Perfect. So we now know how to update views, update forms, drag some new fields in. We need to have a little bit of conditional logic for lookup fields filtering, which I'll cover in the next video. And you know how to make a model-driven app at the most basic level. That's perfect. It's a great start for 10, and it'll set us up nicely for our next video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ask for advice. More than happy to help where I can, and see you soon.